Welcome to my instructional video on preventing burnout. I do hope you enjoy. Hello strangers, this is Nessa. If you're like her, you're nearly caught up on shows that stopped airing 5 years ago because editing season is in full throttle and all you do is edit with the TV prattling on in the background for weeks on end. Or maybe you're just someone who wants to talk about feeling burned out. If that sounds like you, we should talk. Today we will be discussing burnout, which is a running theme in all careers. In creative fields, burnout will feel like you've hit a creative block. You may feel like the work you're doing is uninspiring or has too much similarity to things you've done previously. There are times when Nessa is in a slump where she literally forgets all about getting variety when she's posing clients, which is a completely different feeling than not having variety because of a rushed timeline. But she's not just a photographer, she's also the business administrator and editor of her business. So when she's back at her computer and away from the creative side of her job, she may feel a lot of avoidance when it comes to things she should be doing, like editing and emails, which puts her behind, which makes her want to avoid work more, which puts her more behind. Feeling burned out can make one feel anxious, frustrated, tired, or apathetic, which you'll notice has overlapping symptoms of depression. Since her personal burnout usually happens towards the end of the year and coincides with the beginning of seasonal affective disorder, we thought November would be the perfect time to address it, since Nessa is currently actively working to prevent burnout as much as possible. Burnout is preventable. Much like saving money in case you have a slow period, you can't save money when you don't have money coming in, just like you can't work off your reserved energy if you don't make an effort to save it up when times are good. If you don't save, you'll have to cut expenses, or in our case, activities, to get your energy back. Here are some steps to help you prevent burnout before it begins. Preventing burnout. Limit doubleheader wedding weekends. Past Nessa often thinks it's an okay idea, but it always takes multiple days for future Nessa to bounce back when they're finished. Know what drains you creatively and avoid those things. I've heard photographers say that they don't love shooting in ballrooms or churches or hotels. If you know that about yourself and are worried about burnout, weigh your options carefully and don't blog events that you don't wish to do again. And then try to limit taking on those bookings to a few times per year. One way to avoid booking clients who are a bad fit is to curate the work you show so you're attracting people who are a good fit, and be open to turning down events if you feel that you won't do your best work for them. Everyone deserves someone who will give 100% and love their photos, and it's okay if that's not you. Saying no to things that don't excite you is good. Don't do mini sessions, for example, if you don't want to be stressed out during the busiest time of the year. Don't do headshots if they aren't fun. In creative fields, doing more of what you love and less of what you don't will keep you happier for longer. Set a max number of events you'll shoot. Nessa always feels overwhelmed when she shoots more than 25 weddings, so her business goals are based on not having to exceed that number. Become an associate photographer or a second shooter if what you really want to do is just take photos and you'd prefer not to do any administrative work. Set up an autopilot plan. Even if you aren't ready to outsource administrative tasks, trying to remember whether or not you've delivered a USB to a client is completely avoidable with a basic checklist system. Nessa uses a task manager for everything called OmniFocus. If she died, someone would be able to pick right back up where she left off based on this program alone. This will also help if you're ever sick and need to outsource more of your life than you anticipated. Be aware of how much time actually goes into traveling for weddings and sessions, including prep and static non-travel time away from home, especially if you tend to get stuck in traffic. How does travel affect you? Do you feel renewed after sitting in traffic for 2 hours? Sometimes just charging for your time is necessary for you to feel like it's worth it, and sometimes you'll realize that traveling to certain locations isn't worth it at all to you. Some of these ideas are fairly basic, but must be planned in advance and cannot be immediately implemented to alleviate your current burnout woes. And now that Captain Hindsight has shared her views,
I know what to do in retrospect.
Let's address the reality of our situation. Bouncing back from burnout. Let's be honest, you didn't plan ahead, did you?
No.
I thought not. It's November and Nessa wants to crawl in a hole and hibernate already. The other day, Nessa literally wrote out in a Christmas card, I thought sending Christmas cards this year would be a good idea. I was wrong. So here's what you can do to get you back on track. Give yourself room to play and make mistakes while you shoot. Nessa likes to have at least a few basic go-to poses for couples she's photographing, so she knows her clients are getting some safe, traditional, beautiful, flattering standard photos, and then she'll take a few creative shots that she puts on her creative bucket list for the day. Some of those images may work, some of them won't. The point is, she has room to play because she already knows that she's giving them quality work. Outsource. Do more of what you love and less of what you don't. Nessa just did a video on editing recently, but maybe it's your emails that you need to outsource. Maybe it's house cleaning. Maybe it's cooking. Maybe it's editing. Maybe it's childcare. Maybe it's dog walking. When you're feeling burned out, it can be incredibly helpful to get some of your time back from somewhere in your life. Go to a workshop. Education can be really inspiring. Sometimes just having a new, different approach will reinvigorate you. Nessa has been to workshops of other photographers, attended conferences, and done paid mentorships, and each time they sparked a bit of creative motivation in her. It's also just cool to hear how different people make art. Work on a personal project. It doesn't have to be photography, but it can be. Nessa loves to do illustrations, but she has to schedule time for her to do it and make it a priority because she won't find extra time laying around. And she can see a difference in her happiness when she makes time to work on her illustrations. Sometimes it helps just to try to approach things like they're new. Mindfully look through work of other photographers and think about what you really like about it. One thing that can be helpful is to put your LCD screen in black and white so every photo is broken down into just shapes, lines, and light without the distraction of color. Or try to shoot everything at f11 for 20 minutes. Sometimes giving yourself restrictions can push you creatively and help you step outside of your comfort zone. Exercise. This might seem like a weird one, but since burnout and depression have so many overlapping symptoms, exercise can help get you out of a funk. For general burnout, stick to work hours. Set expectations that you won't get things done in a specific amount of time or respond in X amount of time, and don't stray from it. If you're being honest, if you're sitting at your computer for 12 hours, are you really working non-stop? Or could you put stricter limits on what you do on your computer, using programs like self-control to block websites and work more efficiently? Change your scenery. Sometimes eliminating distractions of home life by simply going to a coffee shop to edit or answer emails will help you out. Take a class. Any class. It doesn't have to be creative. Sam and Nessa took a chocolate making class the day after a particularly challenging wedding, and it completely renewed Nessa in a way that resting the day after a wedding does not. Work on your mental health. Take time if you need it. Take breaks when you need them. Schedule personal days and meditate. This is a big one. There is an app called Headspace that can walk you through learning how to meditate. Sometimes when Nessa feels really frustrated, she needs a reminder that what she does is not about her. Her job is important and feeling creative is important, but what she does is take photos for other people. Focusing on the physical self is sometimes helpful to externalize your thoughts. Travel less for work, or travel more. Nessa is much happier at home and specifically targets her business to be less destination and more local because she knows how draining it is for her to not be at home. Some people need to walk away from projects to get perspective and renew their energy. Some people, like Nessa, feel energized when they just buckle down and work. She feels that she's accomplished something whenever she's making progress. You may need to look at more work to feel inspired, or look at less. And this is why it's so important for you to know what motivates you. And those are all the steps you can take to help prevent and work through burnout. And hopefully now you're feeling renewed. However, be aware that you will probably feel burned out again. It could be your annual tradition, like crying about getting older or Googling to see if Betty White is still with us. And do you know that thing where you aren't supposed to compare yourselves to others? This is one of those times. It seems like such an obvious statement, but if you aren't feeling creative, don't look at Instagram and compare your last 4 weddings taken at an indoor venue because it's cold out to everyone's best marketing materials collected in one place. That's not fair to you. Acknowledge that everyone is in a different stage than you. Everyone. It's like when you go to the gym and some people have been fit for a while and some people are just starting out. Someone else doing well does not mean that you are not. And that concludes today's instructional video for overcoming burnout. Thank you for watching and good night.
Is that underwear?
Yeah, it's for Patreon.
Okay.
Obviously.